All right, thank you all very much. It's nice to see that music is alive and thriving and people are curious to know a little bit about it. Just a quick survey here so I know who I'm talking to. How many people in here are actively involved in music, like taking guitar lessons, vocal lessons, music? Awesome. Okay, that's great. Fantastic. Well, I'm just going to give you a little bit of information on myself, just so you kind of know where I come from, actually. I actually started off when I was 19. I had sung a little bit in school. I hadn't done much. Didn't know how to play an instrument. But I was working on the road for Manitoba Hydro. So what I started to do is, because I had a lot of downtime when I was on the road, I started to teach myself how to play guitar. And it was then that I tried the quick way, because everybody wants a fast solution to this process, right? So I entered all the contests they had in Manitoba, Canadian Idol. They had Bud Country Talent Searches, the Dauphin Country Fest Talent Search. Tried all of those, never won anything. So I wasn't really getting anywhere with that whole process. So I started playing a couple open mics around Winnipeg, and there are some of these sheets available with some resources on them that you can get directed to where these open mics occur if you're interested in something like that. In 2008, I entered something called Starcatcher, which was again a talent search, and this was actually a talent search that I didn't want to enter. This was one that my mom signed me up for, and I was sick and tired of losing contests, so I told her there's no way I'm doing this, okay? I'm done. Being a typical mom, she basically said, I'm your mother, you're going to do this. So I did it. It's a good thing I did, actually, because what it did was I ended up winning that, and for the first time, somebody paid for me to go into a studio to record my first single, which was then featured on a compilation album. Now, it was that process that solidified music as my passion, was going into a studio and actually recording something that I'd written. That experience alone got me going. So I applied to something called Manitoba Film and Music, which is an organization that we have here in Manitoba that will grant you money to record albums, to tour, to do things like music videos. And the very first level of that is something called a demo grant, where they'll give you $2,000 to help you record something original for you to start off with. And it was with this demo money that I started working with a producer, and I recorded a couple more songs. And this one guy kept telling me, you know what, you're from Winnipeg, Manitoba, you're never going to make it. Okay, nobody's ever going to play your music. So if this is something you just want played on your local Dauphin station, fine, but don't get your hopes up high. So I moved on. I went and I was working full-time, and I decided to treat this the same way any of you would go about treating something like university. Because this is the mindset to university. You're going to go to university, you're going to go to college, you're going to go take a trade, or you're going to go into music. There's an upfront cost. You're going to have to invest some money with no guarantee of a career when you're done. But I decided to take this upon myself, and I came up with $10,000 to make a 10-song original CD called Campground Cowboy, which was picked up by a couple radio stations here in Manitoba. NCI was good enough to support me, as well as my home station of 730 CKDM. Again, working with this producer, the guy told me, you're from Winnipeg, Manitoba? Sorry, man, you're not going to do it. It's not going to happen. So I went and found somebody else. And in talking with this guy, this is something that's very important for an artist up and coming, is if you can find somebody who's into artist development. Okay? So I found a producer who's into artist development, and this is the kind of guy who is willing to work with you, set you up with things like, he set me up with a vocal teacher, set me up with somebody to help me with my guitar skills, set me up with people to write songs with, to get me started down this road to music. Okay, so I recorded with this guy a 12-song LP, and again, he knew people, and he was able to squeeze me in by basically begging to showcase at the Canadian Country Music Awards in 2010. And this was a big thing for this label guy because he had never seen me, he'd never heard me, he didn't know what I was doing. But I made sure that when I showed up at this showcase, I was on my A game, okay? Rehearse, rehearse, rehearse. It's a big thing for musicians to do. It's like running a marathon, okay? You don't just get up one day and say, I'm going to run 16 miles. This is something you have to build towards. So I showed up at the CCMAs, played for these guys, and it was right after that they signed me to a record label called MDM, which at the time was with Universal Music. So we released the first single, again, NCI 730 CK8M picked it up, but then the shocker. QX 104 jumped on board, which is the major station here in Manitoba. Their sister station in Brandon picked it up, and then radio stations across the country started picking up as well. And for this, we had a music video done. CMT jumped on board. This may or may not play, it may be choppy. Let's give it a shot, see if it plays. This is the music video that's currently playing on CMT right now, which is not the one I just talked about, but the new one.
Pride, I'd be gone. If it was up to my mind, I'd be moving on. If it was up to my shoes, I'd be letting rubber on the street. Anywhere else, well, that's where I'd be. But ain't it just my love? Every other part of me gets some stuff. You'd already be gone if it was up to me, but my if it took a train, I'd be on that track. If it took a drink, I'd be knocking one back. If one little pill could set me free, honey, I'd OD. Yeah, I'd OD. But ain't it just my love? Every other part of me gets some stuff. You'd already be gone if it was up to me, but my heart's got a memory. My heart's got a memory. Sometimes it feels like my heart's got a mind of its own. It just decided it don't want to leave you alone. But if I had my way, I wouldn't feel this pain. And maybe someday, baby, I'll kick this thing. But I really don't know, and that might be 'cause my heart's got a memory. My heart's got a memory, yeah. Oh, yeah.
There we go. Thank you. So that's a little bit about me, and that last song, if you like, it's on YouTube and stuff, and Eric Church wrote it if you're a fan of Eric Church. I'm a huge fan of Eric Church, by the way. Now the job description, okay? First of all, being a musician, you have to be very self-motivated. Nobody's going to be shaking their fist at you, telling you didn't show up to work, okay? You have to do a lot of things like practicing, rehearsing. Again, like I told you, this is something you need to take seriously if you want to be seriously in music and you actually want to make some money at it. If you want to do it as a hobby, there's that option too. I have a lot of friends who play around the city here in bar bands and local clubs. They make a little bit of a dollar. It's great. If you want to play bigger things like festivals and start talking record labels and stuff, you really need to take it seriously. So you need to decide whether you want to be solo or with a band, and if you want to tour for extended lengths of time, because that will happen in the beginning. Workplace, again, it could be bars, could be festivals. If you want to travel, you'll be living out of a suitcase. Done that. It's fun, but it gets old very quickly. Evening, weekend work is common. So if you're one of those people that wants to work Monday to Friday, it's probably not the right job for you. In fact, weekend work is more common than during the week. And as I said, it's up to you to determine how much practicing, rehearsing you want to do. Now, I imagine some of you are singers. That's great. I would suggest that you work on that, whether your vocals are your instrument or whether you play something like drums, bass, guitar. All of these things have a place in music. How many of you are singers in here? Awesome. How many of you play instruments? Again, awesome. Just playing an instrument, if you're good at it, I pay my guys anywhere from $500 to $1,000 a show. So one night, $500. And you're playing the same songs at every single one of my shows. So you can make a lot of money. Now, when I started off, I was paying these guys $50 to $100. But as we get more money coming in and as the name grows, I can afford to pay them more. So there's a lot of money to be made. As a singer, I make anywhere from maybe $1,000 up to $6,000 a show. If you get even bigger, you want to talk about guys like Eric Church or Rascal Flatts. Rascal Flatts, for example, make about $1.5 million a show. We're talking major money. Now, the qualities you need to have as a musician, and this is irregardless of whether you're a singer or somebody in the band, you need to have some kind of musical ability. If you don't have it, work towards getting it. Okay? Even the best musicians hone their skills by having vocal coaches with them, having practicing their guitars, their drums, whenever they get a chance to. People skills, it's huge. This is an industry that's built upon relationships. Whether you're in a band or whether you are a solo artist, you're going to have to be meeting people. You're going to go in to meet radio stations. You're going to go in to meet people like CMT, Much Music, YTV. If they don't like you, and pay attention to this, you'll notice when somebody on radio has had an impression made upon them by an artist. They'll be talking about Johnny Reed, such a wonderful guy, came in, blah, blah, blah. They really pump him up, as opposed to saying, Headley, here's Headley. They just play it. Say nothing about him. It's because they could have made a bad impression when they came into the radio station. That's huge. These people remember. And that could be the difference between your new single coming out and them saying, this was a really great guy, great girl. Let's give it a spin. Education, well, you don't need a college or university education, although for the music industry, whether you're in producing, you want to be a manager in the label, or even as an individual artist, knowing something about marketing is going to go a long way, because you are marketing yourself as a musician. It's also a good backup plan. And as I said, everybody does take additional lessons. Whether they're about to go into studio to record a new album, they will actually hire a vocal coach. When they're on tour, most major signed artists will have a vocal coach with them working all the time. Can you make money? Sure. But you may have to work at the beginning of this career for very little. I did a lot of free stuff. I still do free stuff depending on what the cause is. I donate a lot of my time to help promote musicians. And a lot of people, when they're starting off, do have a second job to support themselves. So here's what to expect. Long hours in music, okay? The startup costs are high. You can see that it's about $2,000 a song if it's a good song. You can always find somebody in whatever city you're in to record your songs for. They'll say, well, come into the studio, $100, we'll record your song. A good way to look at how your music is going is imagine two of your favorite artists or what kind of medium or format you want to be played on. For me, it's country radio. So before I put a single out or before I find somebody to record my stuff, I listen to what they have recorded, and I basically say, okay, if Keith Urban's song was to come on, and Brad Paisley's song, and mine was stuck right in the middle, if that makes people go, what was that? Probably not good enough. Because that's exactly what the radio programmers will say. You're going to need thousands of dollars to showcase. So again, when I go to the CCMAs, Canadian Country Music Awards, it's sometimes not always possible for me to fly my entire band out to Hamilton or out to Edmonton. So what you do instead is you book a house band there. They'll learn all your songs, but it's going to cost you probably $500 to $750 if you're a solo artist. If you are obviously in a band, it's probably going to be in your best interest to take your whole band. But you want to showcase at places like that because that is, you're showcasing for the people in the industry who are going to be helping you along the way. So there's a quick breakdown of costs. Again, you should have some music, whether it's originals, covers. I know a lot of bands will do cover tunes in the beginning. They'll record a few cover tunes. Work with the publishing companies to get that done. It's a good way to start generating revenue. I can go in after getting a few things cleared. I can make a copy of, let's say, Johnny Cash, Folsom Prison Blues, my version. Sure, I can sell it on iTunes and start generating income for myself. As long as I don't take ownership of that song, that's okay. As long as I don't say I wrote it, it's not my song. Social networking is huge. It's getting to be bigger and bigger every single day. I mean, I'm on Facebook, personal page, artist page, Twitter, MySpace, believe it or not. This actually shocked me. Shocked me. We laugh at, some of the musicians in here probably snickered when I said MySpace, but when you go to the States and you talk about music, that's the first thing they will go to. Like if you talk to an artist in the States and say, hey, and you should check out my stuff, they immediately go to your MySpace page if you have one. It's crazy. It kind of blew me away as well. Again, should have photos done of you or you in the band. Have them done professionally. Okay? You're selling yourself as a product. Don't just get your friend to snap photos of you doing this. Not going to sell. Nobody wants to buy those. Again, you don't need to have a band if you want to start out. I didn't. In the beginning, I hired a lot of my players. It was never consistent, so you get a different sound every time you take to the stage. But sometimes that's the most affordable option to do. As well, if you can do gigs acoustically or with just a couple people, maybe a guitar and a piano or something, you can start generating some income and getting your name out there. Now, here's some of the things you might need in this industry. One of the most crucial things to have is a manager. And a manager will work as a buffer between you and the people you're working with. A manager can help you come up with strategies to market yourself, come up with strategies to get you in front of people like labels. It doesn't just happen. You don't just get a label. I mean, some people luck out, right? You get your Justin Biebers of the world. They put a video up there and bam, somebody says, that's great, I want that. But if that's your solution and that's the way you want to go about this, I would suggest buying lottery tickets instead. Get a better shot at it. They can also help you do something called damage control. And the reason I even have this in the slide is because every artist, at some point in their career, may encounter this, where you say something offhandedly and somebody takes offense to it. You need to remember that when you get to a certain level, everybody's listening to you, everybody's paying attention to what you say, and if they take offense to it, they'll pass that on. Okay, so manager can help you deal with stuff like that. Agent, everybody wants an agent. They will handle the bookings, okay? Now, as important as an agent is, in the beginning stages of an artist's career, I would say don't even worry about this. Find somebody or yourself try to book shows. Because if you get signed to an agency group, the way they work is they work on commission. So if you're the low man on the totem pole, they're not going to be really pitching you out to people, major festivals, because they're not making any money off you. They're going to instead pitch the Johnny Reeds, the Nickelbacks, the people who are going to bring them in the most amount of money for a gig. A label. The ultimate goal of every artist is to be signed to a label. My label is MDM Recordings and EMI Canada. Now, what they do is these are the guys who've been in the industry for a long time. They can take your single and get it to radio stations. They can take your video, and you can take your video yourself, walk into MTV or CMT. These people are going to look at you and then put it in a pile, probably bigger than that, of other people who've walked in with their video saying, hey, here's my video. You get a label to walk in. These guys, depending on the label, can also put a lot of muscle behind it. They walk in, they say, this is something new for my artist, so they put it in a shorter pile. And depending on the level of the artist, I know this is currently going on with a couple artists, I'm not going to mention any names, but a label can phone up television stations, they can phone up radio stations and say, look, we want you to play this more, this single or this video, and if you don't, this other artist on our roster, you're not going to get their next single. Puts a little bit of muscle behind them. Radio tracking. This is very important. When you're starting to get out there, you want your songs to be played on the radio. And again, this is something you could do yourself, but what a radio tracker does is phone every week. He phones every single station that your single's been sent out to and says, have you added the single? Yes? Great. How many times have you spun it? Or if they say no, why not? What's wrong with it? You know, and they keep that pressure on. So they kind of inform you of what stations have your single, which ones have added it, how many times it's been spun, where it's being played. Crucial information. Takes a lot of time to phone all those stations. This is how I spend my day. I log into my email every single day. I have to answer questions from management, from the label, from bookers, which at this point in time, I now forward on to somebody else to deal with the bookings. My tracker, my radio tracker, tells me what's going on. I can ask him questions. Writing songs. Managing practices. Again, it's one thing to practice yourself, but if you've got a band or you've got other guys in the band, you want to make sure they're on top of this stuff as well. I take vocal lessons, and in a time like right now when I'm not actually touring actively, I do it maybe once every 2 weeks just to learn how to keep my vocals in shape. Okay, it's the same as going to the gym and working out. If you want to stay in shape, you got to keep doing it. Guitar lessons, I'm always learning new stuff. Like I said, I'm a self-taught guitarist, so kind of a hack. And social media. I mean, I could post the same update to every single one of those different social media outlets, but then what's going to be the incentive for the people who enjoy my music to join me on Twitter, to join me on Facebook, to join me on MySpace? So it needs to be a little different and customized for each. Again, the industry is changing. It used to be that you would have a record label come to you, say, we love what you got, here's $250,000, you're now on our label, make a record, and we will recomp that money through record sales. But because, with our generation, I'm going to throw myself in this category, although probably not, but we have file sharing, we have illegal downloads. All of this takes away from the artist, which could someday be you. So now, record labels don't make their money selling albums. They don't make their money selling singles. So they need to find other ways of doing this. So now what happens is something called artist development. So every major label has smaller labels underneath it that will develop an artist. And in that sense, if you can come to them with a product, and again, you don't need to make a full CD. 2 or 3 really good songs, even 2, is a start. Something that really showcases your ability. I would suggest, as up-and-coming artists, go to things like open mics. On these sheets I've handed out here, there's a bunch of resources I've put for you to look at, such as bytesforyou.ca. Has anybody ever heard of that website? That's where musicians, you can go on there if you're looking for a band, or there's other people on there who are looking for singer. They need a lead singer, they need a guitar player, they need a drummer. There's a couple karaoke places. Karaoke's fun, helps you practice that vocal thing. Manitoba Music. We are very lucky to have Manitoba Music. How many of you have heard of that? Okay, that's something you should check out. It has seminars that they put on that are more in depth than what I've just done. I've covered a broad spectrum of things to expect or things that I've been through. These guys will put on seminars about marketing. They'll put on seminars about filling out funding applications to get money, to make a record. They'll cover seminars talking about, doing your taxes as a musician. They have seminars that are very customized to every facet of the industry. So I would recommend, if you've never been to the Manitoba Music website, go there. They also tell you what's going on around Winnipeg, what bands are playing. Okay, so check that out. And then there's Kijiji again, which if you're looking for a band, or you're looking to join a band or start a band, or you're looking for an additional instrument, good place to go. Okay, lots of people post ads up there.